Start with Pharmacare. You said in the House today that over 1 million Canadians are forced to give up food and heat in order to buy their prescription drugs. So how does forming another advisory council to study it change that reality? This has been researched for decades. Canadians want it, and you're just starting to study it.
Well, Lisa, first of all, it's great to be on your show. And I think that people would expect us to take a responsible approach to considering a change that would have far-reaching positive impacts on Canadians. I myself was in the private sector and actually ran the largest benefits firm in the country, so had a lot of exposure to dealing with benefits plans, which include Pharmacare. I know from that there are multiple ways that people get access to Pharmacare in this country right now. We want to make sure that we consider how we can make a big difference for people who don't have access, especially in light of the changing workforce dynamics. We have more people that are working independently, more people that might not have access to benefits plans. Plus, we have a gap from people who might not have any access because of the kind of job they have. There does require us to take an approach that considers this challenge and to also think about how we manage it in a way that keeps the positives of our current system but addresses the gaps. In our estimation, this requires an approach that is considered, and that's exactly why we appointed Dr. Eric Hoskins to lead the approach starting today.
But a Pharmacare plan was in the Liberal Red Book back in 1997, so why should Canadians believe this one would be any different?
I think what Canadians will see when they look at what our government has done is that as we've set out challenges, that we followed through on them. We came into office saying that we needed to deal with the challenges facing middle-class Canadians. We quickly introduced the Canada Child Benefit, which helps 9 out of 10 families with on average $2,300 more. We said that we were going to deal with the challenge around housing. It's a big long-term challenge, but we've set out a national housing strategy that commits, together with the provinces, $40 billion to housing over the next decade, really trying to deal with the fact that there's not enough opportunity for good housing opportunities in places like Toronto and Vancouver, as well as across the country. So we've followed through, Lisa, on the things that we said we wanted to do. This is, for us, a really important thing for us to consider and get right. The situation 5 years and 15 years ago was different than it is today. The workforce looks different. The challenge around pharmaceuticals is different because of the very high expense of pharmaceutical products and what that does for people who don't have them. Getting it right requires some research. It requires some analysis. We're going to do that in a way that will allow us to move forward on ensuring that this is an important part of our national approach to healthcare.
So much has changed in the last 15 years. This, is the first budget in longer than that with NAFTA in the balance. So does this budget stand if the deal falls apart?
To deal with challenges like NAFTA, as you identified, what we want to start with is ensuring that our economy is strong and resilient. What we said a couple of years ago is that investing in Canadians, making sure that Canadians had enough money to deal with the challenges, growing the number of jobs would have a big impact on our economy. Lisa, what we've seen is it's absolutely true. We've had the strongest growth rates in our country among G7 countries over the last year and a half. We have among the lowest unemployment rates we've seen in 40 years. Our economy is strong. And that's what allows us to negotiate NAFTA from a position of strength. We've said we want to negotiate a better deal, but we won't just accept any deal. It has to be an improvement. We can't do that if Canadians don't have a sense of confidence in their job and in the opportunities for their children. So putting those conditions in place is really what allows us and enables us to be a strong negotiator at the table and deal with those risks. There will always be risks. Being in a better economic situation enables us to work to manage them.
But there are entire sectors of our economy that would need serious help if it did fail. So is a $3 billion contingency plan enough of a buffer to that risk?
We continue to always put a contingency in. I will tell you that we think the risks are fairly balanced. We put forth an economic plan based on economists' forecasts for the economy. We see that some believe we're going to grow a little faster than what we've said we're going to grow, and some believe we'll grow a little slower. The place that we've gotten to is the average of those forecasts. We do, of course, know that, that NAFTA presents a challenge, but we also know that with the strong economy, the place that we're at right now, with the investments we're making in the long term, we're making big investments in science, in research. We've made investments in ensuring that our innovative firms can be successful. We've made investments to help Canadians to get the skills they need for those new and exciting jobs. Those actually propel our economy forward and put us in a good position to deal with the challenges that we're going to face.
And there are many of those. In the lead up to this day, Canadian economists urged you to lower the corporate tax rate to keep up with U.S. tax cuts, and you decided to hold the line. Why was that?
Well, that's not exactly the way I saw it, Lisa. We had some economists who said that we should consider the U.S. taxes today, but I actually had a fair number of economists who understood that you need to do the analysis to get that right. It's not a surprise to me that business leaders are asking for lower taxes. I used to run a business. Of course, businesses want lower taxes. What we're really focused on is making sure their tax rates are competitive. So in order to do that, we need to take a look at what changes have happened in the United States. With our eyes open, we need to do our homework. They have not even completed all the regulations around those changes. But what can I tell you right now? We still have the lowest tax rate in the G7 countries, including the United States, for small businesses. Canada's the lowest. We now see that the US have changed their rates, but their rate is around 26% now for large corporations. Ours is around 27%. So a very tight band. So as we move forward, we are going to carefully make sure that our tax rates are competitive. We need to do that. We're also going to make sure that our overall economy is competitive. And that means continuing with a strong workforce, which we have, that's highly educated. It means investing in science and fundamental research. It means ensuring that our institutions stay strong. Of course, we have a strong banking sector that's been quite resilient. And it means maintaining our very strong, what I'd call balance sheet. We have the lowest amount of debt to our economy of any G7 country, and it's going down every year with our fiscal forecasts. So that's the way we keep competitive. Taxes are part of that, and we will do the homework to get to a place that ensures our competitiveness remains strong.
Well, it's clear there is great unpredictability south of the border. In fact, I thought it was funny the day you put on your new budget shoes, a grade sixer asked if you were afraid of Donald Trump. Are you?
No, we're clearly working with our American colleagues, I guess I'd have to call them. I've worked together with the Treasury Secretary in the United States. At the G7 table, we'll be president of the G7 this year, and we'll work on things that we can do collectively. At that table, we'll be thinking about things like we're talking about here, how we can ensure growth goes to all of our citizens. It's not just a Canadian challenge, it's a global challenge. How we can ensure people in Canada but around the world are prepared for the jobs of the future. So we work together with the American administration and thinking about things like this. And of course, we're going to have some challenges. Negotiations are almost always challenging because different parties have different points of view. Our approach is to set out Canadians' interests clearly and to work to make sure that we can come up with a better outcome in the future. We're going to continue with that approach.
I can tell you Canadians are certainly interested in a balanced budget, and there is no target in this budget for a return to a balanced book, something you campaigned on, that in 2019 there would be a balanced budget. So why doesn't that seem to matter anymore?
I would say that fiscal responsibility absolutely matters. It matters to our government, it matters to Canadians. I will, though, say that what we said in 2015 in the campaign was there was one party, our party, that wanted to make investments in Canadians, and there were two other parties that wanted to think about austerity and making cuts. Our approach was you invest in Canadians, you get more people working, you have more economic growth. And you need to think about what happened, I guess. We actually have had that happen. We've had stronger growth, we've got lower unemployment than anyone even expected. So we're in a better position. What that better economic results does for us is it allows us to actually reduce the amount of debt as a function of our economy over time, being fiscally responsible. You only have to step out of our borders to see how well we're doing. Again, we have the lowest debt as a function of our economy of G7 countries, half as much as the average. We're lowering our debt as a function of our economy while other countries are actually increasing it. So fiscal responsibility is important to us, but I will tell you that making investments for the long term is also important. And we're laying track for long-term economic success through investments in infrastructure, investments in science and research, and ensuring that we have a competitive ecosystem for firms to thrive in new and innovative ways in our economy. That's altogether a balanced approach to dealing with the challenges and the opportunities that we see in our economy.
In the long term then, when could you project a balanced budget?
What I will say is that you can draw the math from the projections we've put out. You can see that stronger economic growth would lead to better and better fiscal results. We've shown a path that shows that those fiscal results are getting better every single year. The alternative approach from potentially other parties is let's make cuts today. Let's actually reduce the number of jobs today. We just don't think that's the right outcome. We'd rather have more people working, creating more economic advantage for the country. Our budget was very clearly about thinking about women's success in the economy. We've said that with demographic challenges, getting more women engaged in the economy if they so choose, making sure that they have the right outcomes in the economy, which means that they should have equal pay for equal work. This is going to generate better long-term success for our country, just the same way it has for the last 40 years. Women entering the workforce contributed a third of our economic growth over the last 40 years. We know there's more opportunity for women to be successful, and as a result, we'll all be more successful. And that allows us for an even more responsible fiscal track down the road.
Finally, over the last year, you've taken a beating over both your tax reform plan and for your personal finance decisions. How did all of that controversy change your approach to this budget?
Well, I can say that I realize that politics is a blood sport and that things don't have to be true for people to say them. What I can tell you is that it made me realize that you have to deal with what people are saying, even if it's not true. You need to listen hard. We listened hard around the tax changes that we talked about last summer. We've come up with an approach that gets at what we were trying to get at. We need the tax system to be fair. We need small businesses to be able to invest in a preferential way into their businesses, and a balance is important. I think that listening was a really important part of how we got to a very, I think, positive conclusion of that discussion in this budget. For me, it was, of course, challenging, but I'm energized and feel that I'm really privileged to have the opportunity to do this kind of work on behalf of Canadians. And it's especially rewarding when we see that the kinds of things that we've done are having the results we hoped for. You know, more Canadians working, better economic growth, and what that means is a better future for Canadians as they think about what they want to do.
All right, Finance Minister Bill Morneau, we thank you so much for taking time to talk with us tonight.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Lisa. Hope to be on your show again.